My name is Bernard Carbon, and what I'm going to share with you today is how I prepare my veggie fried rice. And yes, it's vegan, and I usually use a meat substitute with my fried rice, a vegan meat substitute that my firstborn son creates from scratch with no soy whatsoever. Highly seasoned, very tasty, but I don't have any of that today. So what I'm going to do is just veggie fried rice, but you can use a field roast meat substitute, vegan meat substitute. Okay, check that out in the description box. Again, it's not as good as my son's, but it's still good. I do like those also, and they do not contain soy. But I try not to do meat substitute too often because they're not natural. So you don't want that too much in your body. So you do it once in a while. Call it your junk food, okay? So we're going to begin. Okay, now let's begin. What we're going to do is prepare the rice. Now, what I mean by preparing the rice is I clean out the starch. I wash out all of the starch out of the parboiled white rice. Brown rice, you'd have to do the same thing. I'm recommending that you do this if you're diabetic, if you're watching your weight. Again, you don't have to wash out the starch out of your rice, but the starch is not good for your body anyway, so I highly recommend that you do so. But if you don't want, just skip this step, but make sure you wash your rice. I do this 5 times. Fill a pot with water. So let's say I'm going to use 10 cups of rice. I would fill that pot with, probably 15 cups of water, something like that. Put a lot more water than rice. And I repeat the process 5 times until that water runs clear. So I use a strainer. You can use a sink strainer or just a huge round strainer to rinse out the starch out of the rice. As you can see here, I've done it a few times, so the water is not as white as it was the first time. So I'm going to use a strainer now. It's easier if you get a sink strainer. It fits onto your sink, so you don't need somebody else to hold the strainer. At this point, I have my baby boy. He's holding the strainer for me while I pour out the water. And as you can see, that the water was a lot clearer. And make sure you don't use just unfiltered pipe water. In America, if you live in America, the UK, Canada, you don't want to use unfiltered pipe water. We filter our water twice. From the basement, where the pipe system, the water system begins, you have to change the filter often, but you got to do what you have to do to get clean food. And you can't be washing your vegetable with dirty water. Also, we filter the water at the faucet level in the kitchen also. So we have 2 filters on. And the water that we drink, oh, that's another process. That's another story in and of itself. But after you washed out the starch out of your rice, there's another process that I go through. You don't have to do this, but I do this because I know that parboiled rice, the white rice, the brown rice, they all have arsenic in them. Why? Poison? It's there. And you need to wash that out. You don't want that in your body. So at least to get 90% out of the rice, the arsenic, what you would do is I soak the rice overnight. I fill this, after I wash it out, I put it back in the pot, fill it up with some filter water again, and then I just usually cover it, Covering the rice overnight in water is not mandatory. This is just an extra step that I take. You can skip this part and just go towards the next step, which is boiling out the arsenic. So, I cover it overnight, and the next morning, what I do is I put that rice to boil. And again, I fill up the pot with a whole lot of filtered water, way more water than the amount of rice in the pot. You do it something like if you're boiling macaroni, you put way more water and then you drain out the water. So you're going to do the same thing. This is how you're going to boil out the arsenic. So I use a bigger pot to, filled with water. So let's say you have 10 cups of rice. do like 20 cups of water. See, you don't want to overcook the rice because we're going to do fried rice. So you're going to just 10 minutes boil that rice, drain out the arsenic water, all of it, and your rice is already semi-cooked. Okay? So again, you just want to, boil your rice for about 10 minutes. You don't want it cooked soft and saggy because we're going to do fried rice. You want your rice firm like this. You see, this is what my rice looks like. It's kind of chewy. It's edible, but it's not soft either, okay? Because we're going to fry, okay? Now the next crazy question would be, why go through all of that trouble with parboiled rice when you can just settle for a healthier version? Like we have the Lundberg. This is my favorite brand. I use this all the time. The wild rice, mixed rice, and also black rice. Those are the best. You have those types of rice, you don't have to worry about washing out arsenic and all the garbage and so forth. So why not do that from the get-go? Do fried rice using wild rice. To be honest, it's a different flavor. It's a different ball game. So I will do a fried rice using the wild rice, but for now, the parboiled white rice, that's my junk food. So that's why I only cook this once in a blue moon, once in a while. You do not want to eat too much white rice, brown rice, and so forth. I actually prefer the black rice over the wild rice. Very good though, very good. Okay, so let the cooking begin from V's kitchen. Here we go. Okay, now besides the rice and the meat substitute, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna break up the ingredients into 4 groups. We'll have the veggies, which you have to cook a little bit, fresh greens, which you don't cook at all, the fresh seasonings, and dried seasonings. Now let's talk about the veggies that you will need to cook a little bit. Like you will need mushrooms. You can use chayote or Christophine, they call it. I think that's how you pronounce it. You don't have to use that. You could use string beans or carrots. I didn't put carrots in this time, but I like to use cabbage, and anything that I can think of that's in the fridge that I can dice up or slice up, I'll add it to my my fried rice. And again, some people might not even like mushrooms. One of my sons cannot stand mushrooms. So whenever I do this, he usually picks out every mushroom, but I always put mushroom in it. It's needed, in my opinion, and everybody else in the house. We prefer to have mushroom, except for my middle son. He just doesn't like mushrooms. But anyway, as for like the dried seasoning, you put whatever you want also. But these are the main ingredients that I listed previously that I put in there. And for the fresh seasoning right here, like you have the thyme, the rosemary, the sage, onion, garlic. And also make sure you just have a half a lime and some ginger. It's like a teaspoon or a tablespoon of ginger at the end. You're just gonna throw that in. It gives it a little extra flavor, which I like. And now, see right here, what I have diced up is some summer squash and the mushroom. I didn't add any of all those other veggies like I usually add. This is what I had in the fridge. So I just diced up the summer squash, some cabbage also. And here's my oil. I like to use my special grapeseed oil, and not too much. You're not gonna deep fry it, just a little oil. While you have the pot heating up with the oil, you're gonna get all your veggies together and season them. You see, I'm seasoning here with some turmeric powder. You can add your curry, your peppers, all of your dried seasoning, and then you're gonna add sea salt, and you're gonna mix it all up. And you do that before you throw this into the hot oil, okay? Make sure your season is good. Like when you seasoning, those of you, before you became vegetarian or vegan, you used to season your meats really well. Well, this is what you're going to do with these veggies that you have to cook a little bit. You're going to cook them for about 10 minutes or so. You're gonna make sure you season them. Maybe you might be someone that do not like too much seasoning on your food, but so you lightly season. But me, I like my stuff highly seasoned. So I mix it up really well. I add my sea salt, make sure it's seasoned. And then the next thing that we're going to do is throw in, you see that this pot is hot now. I'm going to throw in the sage and the onions and the rosemary, all the fresh seasoning first. And right after that, you're going to throw in your seasoned vegetables. See, right after, you're going to throw it all in there. And then you're going to mix it all up, you see? Doesn't that look good? And see, it's not a lot of oil. You see, it's not deep frying here. It's just, I would call it more or less sauteed vegetable rice in a little oil, but it's not too much oil, But if you feel like you need some more oil, you can add it, but you don't want too much oil in the body anyway, so the less the better. Just enough to give it just cook it a little bit, okay? And you want your veggies a little crunchy too. You don't want them soggy. Well, that's me. Everybody's different. Some people like soggy veggie. I have a relative that like his vegetables cooked until they're soggy. Can't stand that. But that's how he likes it. Me, I want to bite into my string beans and so forth. Furthermore, when you cook your veggies too much, you cook out pretty much most of the nutrients, and you don't want to do that. This is just a quick picture of how it looked after a while. Now the next step is to throw in the pre-cooked rice, and that's after like 10 minutes of cooking the veggies. Throw in that, and then mix it up. Now you're gonna add the fresh greens, the spinach, the arugula, and so forth. And you're just gonna mix it up a little bit. And this is when the rice is almost finished, because what you want to do now, you're not cooking the fresh greens. All you want to do is let the hot rice kind of, soften the fresh greens a little, you see? Take a closer look. You're not cooking that stuff. Okay, you want to eat it mainly raw. You want to maintain the nutrients. And right about this time, maybe give it about 5 minutes of that. And you're just going to squeeze a half a lime. And also, you can shred a little ginger, just a little, like a teaspoon or so forth in there, just for flavor. That's optional. You do not have to do that. I love to add the lime also because the lime gives it a little tang, and also it helps the body to absorb the nutrients from the fresh greens that you put into the rice. And also, again, the ginger is a nice flavor, and it helps your body to absorb the turmeric in the recipe. At this point, we're pretty much finished. You can just add some more seasonings to taste. I like to add some more curry, a little bit more turmeric, just for flavor. If you have your pre-cooked meat substitute, add it. Do whatever you want at this point and keep tasting it, and you're pretty much done. If you like to add chili sauce, add whatever you want, but we're done. Now, from the time you add the rice and, the meat substitute, the fresh greens and so forth, it's about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. And you add your sea salt and so forth, any additional seasonings, and that's about it, and you're done.